The power of the woman is the reason why I'm alive today.
This is your host, Leah Richeimer. We are so blessed today to have a very, very special, I'm sure you all feel very special about having Mr. Eli Beer on the show today. He is so special and he's changed so many lives and saved so many lives. And we're just very honored to have him. Mr. Beer, thank you so much for being with us today.
So first of all, thanks for inviting me. And also my name is Eli. So anyone around the world knows me as Eli. So Mr. Beer is my father.
Okay.
And I'm so proud that you're wearing our vest. That's amazing. How did you get to Los Angeles?
There you go. Yeah, no, thank goodness. Rabbi Yellen gave it to me. I know it's really fun. I was wearing it in the kitchen for the show, for the challah making. We're going to have a lot of fun. But anyway, we really wanted to start by hearing. I mean, the whole world was davening, was praying for you. You were intubated for a month in Florida, and we want to hear a little bit about that story, and maybe give us some insight in how your wife dealt with it. And we're all ladies here trying to be the best wives possible. We're just as Sarit said, she's so happy to see you sitting up and strong. So maybe you can start and tell us a little bit about what happened.
So first of all, I'll just tell you, because this is a ladies show, right?
Yeah.
So I have no doubt that the power of the women in the world praying for me, women, I'm saying women, and I'll explain it soon. The power of the woman is the reason why I'm alive today. There is no other way.
You can tell people who don't know, some of our audience is not familiar with what you do. What were you doing? You save lives. Explain the ambucycle so that people know how powerful.
I'll give you the 90-second
this guy is. Okay. Okay.
So I started this when I was 16 years old. I used to volunteer in the back of an ambulance in Jerusalem. And I used to see people waiting for us as an ambulance crew to show up. Sometimes people with serious injuries or sickness, illnesses, or choking, whatever it was, a sudden cardiac arrest, we would arrive a few minutes too late. And it happened over and over and over that we would arrive, we would try reviving that person, trying to bring him back to life, and we couldn't do anything. And then when this terrible incident happened to me, where a 7-year-old boy was choking while he was having lunch, his mother called for help, screaming, "Please come fast." And we were the ambulance available in the city then. This was over 30 years ago. And I was in the back of the ambulance. I was only 16 years old, but the driver was driving so fast. We were trying to get there really quick, and we got there. It was 21 minutes after they called. We tried reviving this little boy. We took out the object out, and we were trying to resuscitate the kid. And while the mother was crying, and we were crying with her, and a doctor who was walking the street saw the ambulance parked downstairs, and he ran upstairs to help us. And after a few minutes, he said, "Just bring a sheet to cover him. There was nothing you could do." That was the worst moment of my life. But that's when I also had an epiphany, and I realized that this child would have been saved if this doctor would have known about this 20 minutes earlier. So I decided to create a network of volunteers responding to ambulance calls before the ambulance arrives. And this was when we didn't have communications like today, so we had to buy these pagers, but we went over to the ambulance system. They didn't want to share their information with us. They said, no, when someone calls for help, they must get an ambulance. So we had to use some Israeli innovation called chutzpah. And we had to buy these police scanners and tap into their emergency calls. And we used to, like an underground operation, listen to their emergency calls and addresses they used to send out the ambulances to. And that's how we knew emergencies are happening nearby. And I realized that if you get to someone within 90 seconds, you have the highest chance of saving that person. So I started with 15 friends. We bought these motorcycles. We call them ambucycles, these motorcycle ambulances. And they're spread everywhere. So the first week, I actually started tapping into their emergency calls. I heard about a 70-year-old man who was hurt by a car.
A 70-year-old man?
70-year-old man. He was injured all over. He had a multi-trauma injury. When I got to him, people surrounding him, but no one did anything. And I reached out to him, and I kneed down to look what's going on. I see he was bleeding terribly from his neck. I had no bandages on me, had nothing. I just started this operation, underground operation. I knew this man needs to be stopped, his bleeding needs to be stopped. So I took off my yarmulke off my head and I actually folded it and I used it as a tourniquet to stop his bleeding. And I just pushed it in as much as I could. And within 15, 20 minutes, an ambulance arrived and they saw what happened. He was still breathing, but he was unconscious. They took him to the hospital. I was sure he's not going to make it. Like all the rest of the patients, we treated that way. But then 2 days later, I get a phone call from a person. He says, "Are you Eli Beer?" I said, "Yes." He said, "My father was treated by you on Hapizgah Street in Jerusalem, Beit Vegan." And I was worried. What is he going to tell me? Is he going to tell me he's seriously injured? He passed away? He said, "My father woke up this morning in Hadassah Hospital, and we told him a story about you saving him with a yarmulke. And he wants to thank you for saving his life." And I started crying. I burst out crying. So I said, "Can I come over to the hospital?" He says, "Yes." I came to Hadassah. I walked in to the room. He was laying on his bed. It was an intensive care unit. And he gave me this incredible hug. It's the best hug I ever got in my life. And then when he took his hands off me, I saw he had a number right here on his hand. And that changed my life forever. That moment,
for the people who don't know, that means he was a Holocaust survivor that was in the concentration camps.
In Auschwitz. He was an Auschwitz survivor. And he built a new family in Israel when he came back to Israel. And he was crossing the street and a car didn't realize and he hit him. And that little act of stopping his bleeding saved his life. It was so simple. It was like more or less like a plumber. Very much like a plumber. He had a bleeding here. I stopped his bleeding and he was alive. The doctor comes in, Professor Rifkin comes in, and he says to me, he was a doctor then, he says to me, "You the boy that stopped his bleeding?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, let me tell you two things. First, he was on Coumadin, which is a blood thinner. If you didn't stop his bleeding within the first 2 minutes, he would have been dead. It was the blood was gushing out. Second thing I recommend you, I understand you want to be a hero, a Superman," he says to me. "Next time you want to stop bleeding, don't use a yarmulke, buy a real bandage." So
the yarmulke saved his life. I mean,
I actually liked that recommendation, and I took the rest of the money I had left over for my bar mitzvah, and I went ahead and I bought a bunch of bandages, and I gave it out to all my friends, and I said, "If we have another emergency, we can stop bleeding that way." And that's how we started, with 15 volunteers, responding to calls and getting there within 90 seconds because we were spread in our neighborhood. And then slowly we started spreading this organization around the world, around Israel. Sorry, it started with Israel, all at different places in Israel. We went to Tel Aviv, to Haifa. Ended up that this became United Hatzalah. Hatzalah means save, rescue. And United means uniting people. And the reason is because we have 6,000 volunteers, men and women, religious,
drop
secular.
Everything and go when there's a call. You're there in 90 seconds.
We have an app on everyone's phone, and we know how to calculate immediately. The emergency calls come in. We have about almost 2,000 emergencies a day for free. We do it for free. We don't charge money. We're volunteers. We get a call. 5 closest people get alert on their phone saying, "Someone is having a heart attack right next to you. Someone is choking right next to you." You run out. You stop your work. You stop your prayers. If you're in synagogue or in a mosque, doesn't matter. You stop and you run to save that person. And we started with 15 volunteers. Now we have over 6,000. Tonight, right after this, I'm going to go for a graduation of another course of 25 volunteers in Modi'in. And just to see these volunteers who put almost a year of studying, it's incredible. And that gives me the motivation. So
now explain what happened in Florida.
So I was in India. I was giving a TEDx in India, bringing this message of Israel's fastest response in the world to India because they need it there. Then I went to England and I was fundraising for Hatzalah, trying to get some funds to buy more equipment, more ambucycles. Then from there I went to Miami, and then I went to Purim, of course, to celebrate Purim. It was in shul, it was everything. And then the day later, I didn't feel well. And I'm like checking my fever, and oh boy, I have fever. I said, I have to isolate myself immediately. I was like worried. I was having a few fundraising events. I right away canceled everything just because I had a little fever. And this is in the beginning. This is in in March, in the 14th of March. So right after Purim, I think that was, or 17 or something like that. And
that was when it was starting to become worldwide, where no one really knew what was going on. So this was in the
one of the first people in Miami. You know, Miami was clean; no one had COVID. So I go to the hospital in University of Miami, and they accept me. I was the only one there outside. They're checking me and everything, and they do an X-ray on my chest. They actually wanted to send me home because I actually took Tylenol before, and my fever went down. So they said, "You don't have fever. You can just go back." I said, No. I have fever. I know what I'm talking about. I'm a medic. I have fever." They did a chest, they did an X-ray on me, and they saw my lungs were full of fluids, full. And they said, "How are you breathing? You can't breathe in so much." I said, "I'm a strong guy." They said, "You're going straight into the ICU." And I ended up in the ICU. That 5 minutes later, I'm in the ICU. Called my wife. I called my kids. I said, "Listen, I'm in the ICU, but I'll be okay. I'll be good. I'm getting good treatment. I'm the only one more or less here in this whole department." And they were worried, but of course not as worried that 3 days later, when the doctors come into the room and they said, a few days later, they say, "We try everything, all the medications and everything, nothing's helping, you're getting worse and worse and worse. We have to induce you into coma and put you in a ventilator. That means intubate you and put a little tube into your lungs, because the oxygen you're breathing is not good enough, not strong enough, and your body is very tired."
The machine breathes for you and keeps you alive while you can heal.
Yeah, the machine pumps in oxygen, 100% oxygen into your lungs, makes it easier. When we breathe, we don't breathe 100% oxygen, and we breathe only quarter of 21% ends up to be oxygen. So this gives you a really big pump of oxygen into your lungs. It makes it easier for you. But I knew that the chances of me surviving this is very low, because I saw the numbers in Europe, terrible. Italy and Spain, people were dying on ventilators every day. And I was worried. I was very, very worried. Very, I could say. And I made a goodbye video for everyone. I was literally sure that I finished my role in this world.
Wow. Yes.
I actually spoke to my wife. This was Friday night. She had Shabbos already. She didn't answer the phone, but because she's at Hatzalah volunteer too, she actually responds to emergency calls too every day as a volunteer. She's a medic, and my kids are medics. It's in our family. You have to understand. I used to run out in the middle of the Shabbos dinner, run out to emergencies, and then come back with a big smile. I just saved someone. So when they grew up, the kids, they wanted to join too. So my wife joined 6 years ago, and she started a whole women's division unit with midwives and everything, running to deliver babies and women on their way to hospitals. So she's involved with saving lives. And I call her up 5-6 times before I'm getting intubated. She doesn't answer the phone. She realized after a while that it's a real emergency. Shabbos, you don't answer the phone if it's not a real emergency. And she says, "What's wrong?" I said, "They're putting me to sleep. They're putting me into a coma. They're inducing me into coma." That was a scary moment. And I I just asked the kids to continue the great work they do. And I'm proud of what they do. I'm very proud of them. They're all great. I have one daughter who's supposed to get married soon, so she took it hard. My other daughter is supposed to have a baby soon, my first grandchild. She took it hard, Panina. So it was not easy. And then 5 minutes later, they just put the medication to put me to sleep. It took 4 seconds. And then I was out. And I was out for a month almost.
It's a miracle. I mean, it's the davening of the world that helped, and all the merits of saving all the lives that you've saved over the years.
So the doctors, they had nothing else to do. They were probing me, of course, putting me in my stomach for me to breathe better. It's like a negative way of, it's a way of saving people's lives. It's actually an amazing idea, whoever came up with it. I never did real research, but it's a great idea of putting people on their stomach and they breathe better for 18 hours a day. And they tried all the medications possible. They tried everything. They almost gave up. And then almost a month later, they found some kind of a new treatment that wasn't authorized yet, but it was like a compassion medicine. That's how bad my situation was. And they got an FDA approval for that and gave me stem cell medicines, like made out of bone marrow. And they tried on me. And then the next day, I had big improvement, and they woke me up. They took out the intubation. And it took me 2 or 3 days to get back to myself. I was completely scared. I didn't know where I was. I forgot everything happened to me right before. I was out, and I had terrible miseries. Really, really, it's called ICU as a name to it, a term to it. People wake up from an induced coma, especially in COVID-19, where you wake up and you see weird people with these uniforms all over you, and no one is allowed to be next to you. No family's allowed to be, no friends. It was very hard. That was the hardest part, is getting back to the world, like coming back. Landing was a hard landing. And I realized how many hundreds of thousands of people were praying for me from all over the world. And I said, and the doctor comes over and he says to me, because we got close, all the doctors and I got close, and the nurses, amazing people. And I was a miracle story. So the doctor says, I'm not a big God believer, he says to me, but after your story, and I prayed for you too, he said, I started believing back in God, because nothing else could have made sense. This whole thing was.
Wow. So maybe tell us a little bit about, you had mentioned about your wife, about her support during it, and your phone call and like that.
So that was a very, very inspiring moment. When the doctors tried reaching her, she wasn't answering the phone. I woke up. It was 2:00 in the morning in Israel, so something like that, and she wasn't answering the phone. She didn't answer, and they tried everything, and then finally they reached someone else from Hatzalah, and he checks in on the computer and he says, I could see where she is according to the GPS. And he says, she's on an emergency call now, delivering a baby 2 blocks away from your home with your daughter, Abigail. And they went to deliver a woman who was on the way to hospital. She was waiting for 30 minutes for an ambulance. The situation was very bad because a lot of COVID patients had to be transported. And every COVID patient, it takes a long time to put them in, to put them out, and clean the ambulance and this and that. So they didn't have enough ambulances. So this woman was waiting for a while, and the baby was no saflanut, no patience, right, in Israel. Kids don't have patience. So the kid couldn't wait, and Gitti went to deliver the baby with Abigail, my daughter. And while I was waking up, that's what they were doing, chesed. And I was blown away from that. Like, wow, like I remembered why I got sick. I got sick to save lives. I got sick to raise money to continue this work of saving lives. And that's what she's doing while I'm dying. And I said, wow, I was blown away from that. Then
very inspiring.
I was so depressed. I asked my main guy in Israel, I said to him, give me a story that will elevate my spirits, because I was so down. I said, I need a good story to be able to get out of my bed and walk, because I couldn't walk. I lost all my ability to walk. I lost all my power. I didn't have any muscles left. I couldn't even pick up my phone. That's how bad it was. So he says to me, Eli, while you were sick, Erev Pesach, you missed Pesach. And I didn't know I missed Pesach. It was a depressing moment when I heard that. He said, what did Gitti do with Abigail, your oldest? They went ahead and they took 60 boxes of food, hot food that was cooked the night before. And they had it boxed with special food for Pesach. And they went ahead in an ambulance and they delivered that food to elderly people who had no food at home. And they had no way of buying food because they couldn't leave the house. They were in quarantine. They weren't allowed to leave their home. It was too dangerous for them. If you remember, that's what they did in the beginning. This is Pesach time. And April, I think it was April 10th or something, or whatever the date was, they went ahead the whole day from 6:00 in the morning, and they came back home. They came after they delivered the last box, and they drove to the neighborhood after Passover came in. And that's when they went to cook for their own family. And I was sick that same time. I wasn't It wasn't even clear that I will survive.
Mm-hmm.
And they were, instead of crying at home and feeling bad for themselves, they were helping people. And that's what my family did. And I know that thousands of people did the same because of that. And I heard stories of heroes. I'm talking about women from all around the world who were baking challah. And they were doing the challah baking, which is a beautiful thing that you do. And they were giving out that challah to people who needed it for Shabbos, that had lost their jobs. And, buying challah is a couple of dollars. You need 10 challahs, 5 challahs for Shabbos if you have a big family. They were giving it out to families that have a need. And they were baking the challah in honor of my, honor me and to make me better, to make me well. And in Judaism, you could pray, but another act of doing things, which in my opinion is stronger, is not only praying, is acting. Chesed. And the way of saving someone is doing chesed on their merit.
Very inspiring, these stories. I'm just blown away by who you are and what you've been through, and that God took care of you and watched over you. And I'm glad we still have you. And how many lives you've saved with your ambucycles in Israel and around the world. It's really an honor, and we should all take a great inspiration from you and what one person can do to change the world and be inspired. I'm very, very grateful to you for sharing all of this with us. Just to end here, do you have one message that you can tell our women?
I was in a very bad situation. I was depressed when I woke up, really terribly depressed. And I realized something very special. When you help someone else, you actually get help more than that person. People are suffering now from financial situations. They lost jobs, they lost money. Some people lost their loved ones. I recommend, and this is my personal opinion, I think you should every single person has something they lost. If it's money or it's someone sick, go ahead and do something good for someone else. You're going to feel amazing. You're going to lift your spirits so much. You're going to feel like you don't have to do anything more than just saying something good to someone, doing something good to someone. Go volunteer somewhere. Give some charity. I know it's hard. Charity always lifts your spirits. Your money is working for you. So I recommend that. You have so many great causes around the world. And I'm not going to, of course, United Hatzalah is close to my heart. And we have a website you go on. It's called israelrescue.org to learn more and support. It's an easy website, and it's incredible, so many stories. But to have so many great other organizations as well. And just do good things. You'll feel much better, and you're going to change the world by doing good things, the same way my family did for me. And it's incredible what people did for saving my lives. And I owe them back, and I'm going to continue saving lives to make sure other people survive.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much for being with us. Really inspiring, and I really appreciate your sharing yourself with us. Thank you very much. We'll look forward to it. Good luck, and Hatzlach. Hashem should watch over you and protect you and continue your great work.
And you know what we say in Israel? Lehitraot.
Yeah.